We had forgotten the taste of war. 1,000 cycles ago, the galaxy burned brighter than any sun, not from stars, but from weapons unleashed in madness. Entire species carved one another into extinction, and those who survived swore never to awaken that hunger again. The treaties were forged then, not out of trust, but exhaustion. Steel and memory became the walls of our fragile peace. For generations, the silence of war lulled us into believing it had been banished, as though slaughter itself had been buried in some ancient tomb. I, Elder Kier of the Zareth Collective, was born into that silence. I believed it eternal. My people told me the galaxy's scars would keep us cautious, that fear of our past would keep the claws of war blunted forever. For centuries, that illusion held. We wove art where once we built ships of battle. We cultivated worlds instead of raising them. Our fleets drifted in ceremonial stillness, little more than relics preserved for memory. And so, when whispers first began to rise, I did not believe them. But whispers, like cracks in stone, spread. The humans were the source. They were late to the galactic stage, barely a blink in cosmic history. When the treaties were signed, they were still bound to their small cradle world, clawing skyward with primitive fire. We did not count them among the powers. They were children then, fragile, untempered by the great purges that had scarred us all. We thought time would tame them, make them docile as it had made us weary. We were wrong. Reports reached the council chambers, first dismissed, then repeated with growing urgency. Human fleets multiplying without decree, without ceremony, without the caution etched into every other species' marrow. Their ships were not works of reverence, but weapons by design. Not for parade, not for memory, pure function. They spread across their systems not as caretakers, but as predators marking territory. When our spies brought word of their training, how every human child learned the history of their wars, not to forget, but to embrace, I felt a chill deeper than the void itself. We bury war beneath memory, but they carry it in their blood. Some of my peers laughed at the reports. They called humans reckless children, doomed to collapse under the weight of their own hunger. But I had seen their eyes when their emissaries stood before us in the council. They did not carry the weariness of age. They carried something else, a fire we no longer remembered. And then came the border skirmishes. At first, no one paid heed. Small patrols, disputed mining fields, simple collisions of claim. But when human vessels refused to yield, even against odds tenfold, the chamber grew restless. "Why do they not withdraw?" my kin asked. "Why do they fight battles they cannot win?" The answers never came. Only the grim reports of ships lost to human defiance. We told ourselves it was nothing, that the treaties would hold, that they would learn restraint as we had. But when the first council envoy returned in pieces, his ship scarred by weapons that should not have existed in human hands, I felt the first tremor in the foundation of our peace. The cracks were spreading. I stood in the citadel of shards, beneath the banners of 1,000 years of silence. And for the first time, I wondered if that silence had been a lie, if perhaps war had never been buried, only waiting for the ones too young to fear it. And as the chamber filled with arguments and denials, I could not silence a single thought. The humans do not tremble. The galaxy always has. And now, it trembles again. From the cold edges of the void, more whispers arrive, this time not whispers of preparation, but of laughter echoing through human calms, defiant even in skirmish defeat. Laughter at the edge of war the shard citadel has stood since before memory, before names. Its spires pierce the void like frozen lightning, carved from crystal that has outlived empires. Here, the council gathers, as it always has, when the galaxy teeters on the edge of ruin. Beneath its vaults we wear ceremony like armor, our banners heavy with dust, embroidered with victories so ancient they no longer feel real. But beneath the pageantry lies dread. I take my seat among the elders of the Zareth, high above the amphitheater floor, where the voices of 100 species reverberate like storms colliding. Each delegate arrives cloaked in tradition, scaled warriors of the Veil, feathered mystics of the Orith, crystalline envoys of the Learn. Their forms dazzle, Yet their eyes betray the same unease I feel. Reports from the frontier have poisoned the air. We speak of humans now, and the chamber falls into unnatural silence. Not even when we spoke of the Zoth genocide nor of the Ashen Wars did we falter so. Only the humans command that silence. One by one, the envoys recount what we already know. Human patrols that do not retreat, even when outnumbered tenfold. Colonies that fight to the last breath, clawing at armored soldiers with tools, with stone, with bare hands. Fleets that burn until their final spark, never raising a white flag, never begging mercy. It is not logic. It is not survival. It is something else, something we cannot name. They are reckless, one chancellor declares, his voice sharp as broken glass. Children of violence, untempered. Bind them to the treaties. Strip them of their weapons before they poison the stars again. Another voice rises, older, brittle, yet fierce. You do not bind fire. You extinguish it. Humanity must be culled before it awakens fully. Their words ripple through the chamber. Containment, annihilation, the choices of the fearful. I remain silent. My eyes sweep the faces of those who have not spoken. They wear the same doubt I feel, though few admit it. The humans are not like the wars of old. We knew those wars. We understood those enemies. They fought for land, for resources, for vengeance. But these new voices from the frontier speak of something else, of laughter. Yes, laughter, not the laughter of celebration, nor the madness of despair. Laughter in the face of annihilation. Entire squadrons swallowed in fire, yet their calms echo with that sound as if defiance itself were music. To our kind, it is madness. To them, it is identity. Contain them, someone repeats. The humans can still be bent. Destroy them, another counters. We will not survive if they rise unchecked. I listen as centuries of peace unravel into fear. The banners above us, symbols of unity, now feel like shrouds draped over a corpse not yet buried. The truth hardens within me, quiet and cold. The peace is not ending because the humans seek war. No, they do not hunger as we once did. They do not march upon our borders demanding conquest. They are not building empires. The peace is ending because they do not fear war, and if fear no longer binds them, then nothing in this galaxy will. The chamber descends into shouting, a storm of voices clashing louder than any fleet. Demands for sanctions, for sieges, for extermination. Yet in the chaos, I hear something more haunting. Silence where there should be reason. None dare ask the question I feel gnawing at my soul. What if war is not a tool for them, but a truth? What if laughter in the face of death is not madness, but their nature? The Council cannot see it. They think in terms of chains and fire, containment and extermination. They think humans can be treated like every enemy before them. But in the hollow of my chest, I know better. We are not facing an enemy. We are facing something older, something primal, something we abandoned long ago. And as the Council tears itself apart with arguments that cannot resolve, I hear the faintest whisper through the comms relays, a fragment carried in from the frontier. It is not a plea for aid. It is not a cry of terror. It is laughter, cold, unyielding, human. The sound cuts through the storm of voices like a blade, leaving silence in its wake. I feel every eye in the chamber shift toward the relay, every heart stutter at once. For in that sound, we all hear the same truth. They are not afraid. And if they are not afraid, then perhaps we should be. The council chamber falls into silence, every banner suddenly meaningless. Outside, beyond the citadel's walls, the first movements of fleets begin. The storm is gathering, and at its center, the humans are laughing. We descended upon them like storms reborn. Our fleets, forged from the bones of stars, darkened the spiral arm with their immensity. Cruisers the length of cities, carriers swollen with fighters, battleships humming with the weight of ancient weapons not fired in centuries. We expected terror. We expected surrender. We expected humanity to kneel beneath the shadow of 1,000 banners unfurled in their skies. What we found instead was madness. The first colony fell within hours. It was little more than a mining outpost clinging to an airless rock. Our soldiers poured through its corridors, expecting frightened civilians to cower. But the humans did not cower. They fought with sharpened tools, with mining lasers repurposed as rifles, with rocks and bare hands against armored warriors. They knew they could not win, and yet they fought. I remember watching through a tactical feed as one human, lungs punctured, crawled forward to drive a jagged drill into the throat of a Zareth soldier before his body gave out. His last act was defiance. We burned the colony to ash. Their broadcasts did not beg for mercy. They mocked us. Their voices carried over the void, laughing as if the skies themselves were theater and our fleets their audience. More worlds followed. A hydro farm station orbiting a dying sun, its atmosphere venting fire, still refused to silence its comms. Families huddled together, children clutching improvised weapons, and when the station finally fractured under bombardment, the last signal it sent was not despair. It was a song. Off-key, ragged, but human voices raised in chorus, mocking us even as they burned. Each new conquest chilled me deeper. We expected their submission. We expected their fear. Instead, every loss became another ember feeding their defiance. And then I saw her. It was during the siege of Outpost Karen, a refueling station straddling the edge of the rift. Our fleets had cut it apart, severing its defenses, spilling fire into its arteries. Half the crew was dead, the other half dying. Yet the commander, a human woman scarred from neck to spine, remained on her bridge. Her station cracked open like a wounded beast, atmosphere bleeding into the void, alarms howling like the dying. And still, she stood. When our fleet opened comms to demand surrender, she laughed. Not the laugh of hysteria. Not the laugh of the broken. It was something deeper, older, a sound carved from defiance itself. "You forgot what war feels like," she said, her voice raw but unshaken. "We never will." The transmission ended with fire swallowing her bridge. But the sound of her laughter lingered in the comm channels, echoing through our fleets long after her station died. That laugh spread, like wildfire across their colonies, like contagion across the stars. Other broadcasts followed, pilots laughing as their fighters spiraled into our cruisers, ground soldiers laughing as their trenches collapsed beneath orbital bombardment. Civilians laughing as fire consumed their homes. Laughter, laughter everywhere, filling the silence between our barrages. We had thought war a memory, buried beneath a millennium of peace. To us, its taste was bitter, a poison we had sworn never to sip again. To them, it was something else entirely. Not poison, not shame, a fire in their marrow, a truth carried in every breath. Each time they laughed, my kin trembled. Not because it mocked us, but because it reminded us of something we had lost, the will to endure through pain, to spit into the void and refuse despair. They fought as if war was not merely survival, but a covenant. And so, though our fleets won every battle, I felt no victory. When the tally of destroyed colonies reached dozens, when the spiral arm was littered with the carcasses of their outposts, the reports grew darker. Our soldiers returned not triumphant but shaken. They spoke of human eyes that burned even in defeat, of voices that did not beg but dared. They spoke of fighting men and women who grinned through bloodied teeth, who mocked death as if it were an old companion. We had always believed war to be a beast, chained and tamed by peace. Humanity proved otherwise. They wore it as armor. They wielded it as instinct. And the more we tried to break them, the more their laughter echoed. Even I, Elder Kyr, hardened by centuries of counsel, could not silence the chill that crawled through me. For each colony we destroyed, I wondered if we were not extinguishing them, but feeding them. What grows stronger when faced with endless death? What thrives in fire? I thought then of the woman on the fractured bridge, her scarred face aglow with flames, her voice carried into eternity. You forgot what war feels like. We never will. I could not banish it from my mind, and I knew she was not alone. Our fleets returned bloodied but victorious, yet in the silence of our command halls, her words still echoed. Somewhere across the burning colonies, the humans were laughing, and deep within that sound, I felt not victory, but a gathering storm. We, the Zareth, were once the keepers of war's rhythm. For millennia, We mastered the tides of conquest, the swell of fleets advancing, the ebb of armies retreating. We knew the patterns as one knows the beating of a heart. War was predictable, cyclical, a storm that rose and fell according to ancient laws. We believed no enemy could shatter that rhythm, but humanity has broken it. Each loss we inflict does not silence them. It births 10 more willing to fight. Each colony reduced to ash does not extinguish their resolve. It becomes a rallying cry, louder than our cannons, sharper than our blades. Their grief is not weakness, it is weapon. Their ships, once crude and clumsy, now haunt our fleets. They are not carved for ceremony or adorned with banners like ours. They are stripped, jagged, brutal things, alive with fury. Function has consumed form. Efficiency has devoured tradition. They build not for pride, but for killing. Every wreckage we leave behind is studied, reforged, reborn into something more dangerous, and they adapt. This terrifies me more than their laughter. Every tactic we unleash lasts only a single battle. Formations perfected across centuries dissolve under human ingenuity. Weapons we thought unstoppable are countered before the debris of battle has cooled. They learn with every heartbeat. It is as though the void itself whispers secrets into their blood, secrets we can no longer hear. In the council chambers, my kin whisper what we dare not speak aloud. Did we awaken something greater than war itself? I hear it in their trembling voices, in the cracks spreading through their certainty. For the first time in countless centuries, we feel fear. True fear. Not of defeat alone, but of something stranger. I remember watching a battle in the Perseid Verge. A human fleet, outnumbered 3-1, shattered an entire Zareth phalanx. Not through superior firepower, not through brute strength, but through chaos. They feigned retreat, drew us into a trap so crude, so reckless, no other species would dare attempt it. Yet it worked. Their vessels moved like predators, darting and striking with improvisation that no doctrine could predict. When the battle ended, their ships were in ruins, half their crews dead. And yet, they had won. That is their truth. Victory, even when wrapped in loss. What unsettles me most is not their strategies, but their eyes. Those who survive battle do not return hollowed or haunted as we once did. They return sharpened, their resolve stronger, their laughter louder. Defeat does not break them. It feeds them. Among the elders, silence has replaced certainty. We speak no longer of when this war will end, but of if. We who once thought ourselves eternal now speak as prey. I cannot banish the memory of a single broadcast intercepted from a dying human frigate. Its engines were gone, its hull splitting apart, fire consuming every deck. Their captain, breathing smoke, opened a channel. Not to beg, not to threaten, but to teach. "Every move you make," she rasped, "we learn. Every weapon you wield, we answer. Every death you deal us only makes us stronger." And then she laughed. The sound carried across the comms even as her ship cracked open and bled into the void. I felt the fear in my marrow. For she spoke not as a desperate soul, but as if she were revealing a law of nature, as if humanity itself had become a storm, feeding on destruction, growing with every strike we landed. War was once ours to command. Now it slips from our grasp, wild and untamed. The humans wield it as if it were their birthright, while we stumble, deafened by our own traditions, paralyzed by fear of our own history. Yes. For the first time in countless centuries, the Zareth know fear, and I cannot help but wonder, if war is a storm, then perhaps we were never its masters. Perhaps we were only its stewards, holding it at bay for a fragile moment in history. Perhaps humanity is what war was waiting for all along. As our council adjourns in silence, distant reports flood in. More human fleets, more defiance, more victories carved from impossible odds. The spiral is tightening, and deep within its eye, humanity is waiting. We believed humanity would crumble, their colonies burned, their fleets shattered, their worlds left as embers drifting in the void. Any other species would have fallen silent under such weight. Yet when we expected silence, they answered with thunder. The humans strike back, not with overwhelming fleets, not with numbers that rival our armadas, but with audacity so sharp it cuts through the fabric of war itself. They leaped through rifts in space no sane commander would dare cross. Uncharted wormholes, unstable folds of hyperspace, fissures that could consume entire fleets without trace. Yet somehow they emerge alive, fangs bared, precisely where we are weakest. I watched one such incursion unfold at the edge of the Valar Rift. A blockade of 100 Zareth vessels stretched across the trade routes, impenetrable, unyielding. Then, from the void, a single human vessel appeared. Just one. Its hull scarred, its weapons minimal compared to our arsenal. At first we laughed. We thought it a mistake, a dying remnant of their ragged fleet. But laughter turned to silence as it carved through our blockade like a blade through silk. It did not win by strength of firepower. No, it struck with savagery, with precision born of desperation and brilliance entwined. Its movements were erratic, unpredictable, as if the crew fought not with strategy but with instinct. In moments it had pierced our formation, shattering a blockade built to withstand empires. By the time reinforcements converged, the humans were gone, vanished back into the darkness, leaving behind wreckage and the echo of their laughter. That laughter, it still haunts me. Not the laugh of arrogance nor the mockery of victors, but something stranger. It bleeds into the mind like a poison, a sound of creatures who refuse despair, who transmute fear into fire. We cannot silence it. Even across intercepted transmissions, even through the static of broken comms, it returns again and again, rising out of the carnage. They fight as though bound by some invisible covenant. Not of empire, not of bloodline, not even of mere survival. Something more primal binds them. Hope. We, the Zareth, thought hope fragile. A soft thing, too delicate to withstand the crushing weight of war. Yet in the hands of humanity, hope is indestructible. It is iron wrapped in fire. It bends, but never breaks. I saw it again in the siege of Ardent 7. Our forces descended with overwhelming might, 30 cruisers, 5 carriers, and a swarm of interceptors blackening the skies of their mining colony. By every measure, they were doomed. Yet as our bombardments tore through their defenses, human ground forces rallied in the tunnels beneath the planet's crust. With weapons salvaged from wreckage, with armor pieced together from mining rigs and scrap, they fought us. Not just soldiers. Miners, children, medics, the broken and the weary, all of them rose with the same fire. They fought not as trained units, but as one organism, a hive of defiance. Even when their tunnels collapsed, even when our gas choked their air, they sang. Sang, as though their voices alone could defy annihilation. We won that battle, or so the reports claim. The colony lies in ruins, the humans scattered. But deep in the ruins, our scouts heard something unnerving, laughter, rising from the dark like embers refusing to die. It is then that the truth began to claw its way into our councils. Their strength does not lie in their ships, though they build them faster than we can destroy them. It does not lie in their weapons, though each one is wielded with feral brilliance. Their strength lies in their refusal to accept despair. Where other species yield to inevitability, humanity claws against it, teeth bared, laughter spilling from bloodied lips. One elder spoke in trembling tones during our last assembly. We can break their fleets. We can shatter their worlds. But how do we kill that which will not die inside them? No one answered. In our history, war has always been mathematics. Resources measured. Ships counted. Victories calculated. Humanity has shattered that calculus. They fight wars with the immaterial. Hope, fury, defiance, forces beyond our equations. Against them, our centuries of doctrine crumble. I once believed fear was our greatest enemy. I was wrong. Hope is the poison in our veins. It seeps into us through their defiance, through their unbroken laughter. It corrodes our certainty, eats away at the steel of our discipline. Already some of our warriors hesitate before battle, haunted by memories of impossible human victories. Some refuse to speak their name aloud, calling them the unbroken ones, and I, too, feel it. When I close my eyes, I see their ships tearing through impossible odds. When I listen to silence, I hear the faint echo of their laughter. When I dream not of conquest, but of fire spreading unchecked across the void. The tide is turning, not because humanity has greater numbers nor greater weapons, but because they carry within them something we cannot kill, something we may never kill. Perhaps this is what it means to face extinction, not of the body, but of the certainty that once made us eternal. Yes, the tide turns, and as it does, I wonder if we, the Zareth, were never the predators we thought ourselves to be. Perhaps we were only the first shadows before dawn. Perhaps humanity is not simply fighting for survival, but for ascendance. And if that is true, then this war is no longer ours to win. Reports arrive of 3 more Zareth defeats in distant sectors. Small skirmishes, insignificant in scale, but each one echoes louder than any victory. The tide is not merely turning. It is rising, and it is humanity that rides its crest. We gathered everything. Every warship the Zareth had forged across millennia, every dreadnought whose shadow had once silenced galaxies, every banner woven in the blood of conquered stars, 1,000 banners unfurled above the Orion rift, their colors rippling in the starlight as if to remind the void itself of our dominion. This was to be the final act, the annihilation of humanity. Our council spoke of inevitability. They said humans were cornered, fractured, and patched together from wreckage. Their fleets were nothing more than skeletons bound in scrap metal, stitched with desperation. We believed we would break them with the sheer weight of numbers, the inevitability of empire. One last strike, and the storm they had awakened would be silenced. So we descended. The rift stretched beneath us, a wound in space-time, swallowing the light of distant suns. Our armada cast shadows across the scarred human flotilla waiting at its edge. Hundreds of ships, yes, but crude, uneven, limping. Their hulls were etched with burns and fractures, patched with stolen alloys, painted not in ceremony but in defiance. Against the perfection of our fleets, they looked like ruins held together by will alone. And yet, they did not scatter. When our guns primed, when our carriers loosed their first wave of fire, the humans answered. Not with silence, not with fear, but with sound. A broadcast carried on every channel, every frequency. At first we thought it a weapon, a frequency attack perhaps, designed to shatter our comms. But it was no weapon. It was laughter. One voice at first, then many, then all. The laughter of children and warriors, of the dying and the unbroken, rising in a chorus that seemed to shake the rift itself. Across the stars it poured like wildfire, echoing inside the hulls of our ships, inside the marrow of our bones. A sound alien to war, yet more terrifying than any weapon. We struck them. Our volleys cut through their fleets, tearing vessels apart in blossoms of fire. Still they laughed. Their ships burned, their hulls ruptured, their crews scattered into the abyss, yet their comms did not fall silent. They laughed as they died, voices carrying on even as wreckage spun into the rift. I saw it with my own eyes, a human frigate, torn in half, its core bleeding plasma into the void. Its crew, what remained of them, opened their comms before the final detonation. No pleas, no curses, only laughter, raw and defiant, mocking death itself. We burned them, but they rose again. Damaged vessels rammed our dreadnoughts, their ruptured engines igniting into suicidal brilliance. Smaller craft swarmed our carriers, tearing through armor not with superior firepower, but with sheer ferocity. Every human ship fought until nothing remained but silence and drifting ash. And yet even that silence never lasted. For another vessel, another voice, another burst of laughter always followed. One by one our ships faltered. Formations broke. Precision collapsed. Our captains hesitated, their discipline corroded by the sound that would not stop. Even as our weapons thundered, their echo was drowned beneath human laughter that refused to fade. I felt it then. The truth we had denied. We were not fighting a species, we were fighting a storm. Humanity was not a fleet nor an empire. They were fire-given flesh, chaos made into covenant. Every loss only fed them, every death only sharpened them. We could destroy ships, burn colonies, silence voices, but the storm endured. It moved through them, between them, unbroken, unstoppable. Our grand fleet, the pride of millennia, began to unravel. One dreadnought fell, then another. Carriers cracked apart like fragile shells. The rift was littered with the corpses of our empire, burning brightly against the void. For every human ship that fell, 2 more seemed to rise from the ashes. their laughter cutting through the ruin like lightning. And when at last my own vessel trembled under the fire of a human cruiser, I heard it more clearly than ever. Not rage, not cruelty, but a promise, carried in their voices as they laughed into the storm. You will never forget us. Our empire had believed itself eternal, but as the Orion Rift swallowed our fleets, as laughter thundered through the void louder than our cannons, I knew eternity had changed hands. This was no longer conquest. This was revelation. Humanity would not merely endure. They would rise. And when history spoke of this war, it would not remember the Zareth as the victors we once imagined ourselves to be. No, we would be remembered only as the shadow that came before the storm. The laughter lingers still, even as I record this. It seeps into the silence, a reminder that though ships can be destroyed, hope cannot. And in that realization, I finally understand. We did not come to extinguish humanity. We came to witness their ascension. The Zareth narrator's final words trail into silence as the last of their fleet breaks apart. But beyond the rift, faint signals stir, human fleets multiplying, spreading, expanding into the void once claimed by the Zareth. The storm has only just begun. The galaxy lies in ruin. What was once order, carved by treaties and bound by ancient banners, is now ash scattered across the void. The Zareth fleets, the pride of our people, the hammer of empires, are shattered husks drifting in silence. The councils that once trembled with authority now whisper in shadows, their voices brittle with defeat. We thought ourselves eternal. Now eternity feels broken, and at the center of this wreckage, humanity stands. Bloodied, scarred, carrying wounds so deep they may never fully heal, yet unbroken. Their ships limp but alive, their colonies blackened but unbowed. Where other species would collapse into despair, they turn their faces to the horizon. Their gaze does not linger on conquest, nor on the bodies of the fallen. It fixes upon the stars ahead as though the war was never an end, but only a beginning. They do not raise banners of dominion above the ruins of our empires. They do not chain the survivors, nor carve their names into planets as monuments of terror. Instead, they rebuild. Piece by piece, they stitch together not just their own fractured worlds, but even those they once called enemies. They gather metal from wreckage, power from shattered reactors, life from the bones of war, and with it, they forge anew. Their laughter, once a storm that shook our fleets, begins to fade. Not into silence, but into something colder, sharper, determination, purpose. A fire no longer wild, but tempered, honed into steel. Humanity has learned. War has not ended them. It has forged them. I watch them from the ruins of our citadels. I see them move not as conquerors, but as survivors who have discovered what it means to endure the unendurable. And I fear this more than their laughter. For laughter was the weapon of defiance, loud, reckless, impossible to ignore. But this silence, this steady resolve is something greater. It is not noise. It is inevitability. Already whispers spread across the stars. Broken species, scattered and lost, turn their eyes toward humanity. Not in fear as once we did, but in something worse, recognition. They see in humans a reflection of what they wish they could be. Resilient, unyielding, unbreakable. We, who once ruled wars, now linger in the shadows, haunted by a single truth. We declared war upon them, believing they would fall as countless others had fallen before. Instead, they laughed. That sound will haunt us forever, the echo of defiance in the face of annihilation. But laughter was only the beginning. I see it now, etched into their faces, into the silence that replaces their mirth. They no longer laugh at death. They walk past it, eyes fixed upon a future even we cannot imagine. Their war was never about survival alone. It was about becoming something more. Something greater than war, greater than empire, greater than us. And when they rise, again, and rise they will, it will not be laughter that greets us across the stars. It will be the sound of destiny, the sound of a species that has walked through fire and emerged not merely alive but transformed. The sound of builders, conquerors, dreamers, all bound by the forge of war into one unbreakable will. Yes, the galaxy lies broken. But humanity does not. They stand upon the ruins of our pride, and in their silence I hear the future. A future that does not belong to us, it belongs to them. The alien narrator fades into silence, leaving the reader with the lingering realization: the war is over, but humanity is only just beginning. The laughter that once terrified the galaxy has hardened into destiny, and destiny cannot be stopped.